Welcome to the Human Conversation Podcast with Jules White, the real Dragon Slayer. Tune in fortnightly for human conversation about business and sales. Enjoy business expert interviews, educational episodes, and virtual cuppers with entrepreneur business owners. And here is your host, Jules White.
So, hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of my podcast. How exciting is this? I've got to episode 2 already. And episode 1, I had such amazing feedback, so I am so happy. Thank you so much for listening. And today I've actually got a special guest. So this is super exciting. So it's not always going to be boring me. It's actually going to be a load of variety of special guests, lots of tips, etc. Now, one of the things I want to do is I want to introduce you to this lady because I want you to understand she is fabulous. She is a lady I have met actually on LinkedIn, which today is what we are going to be talking about. So top tips and a lovely human conversation about LinkedIn. So I'm going to welcome to my podcast today, Eleanor Goold, and she is from Creative Copywriting. Now, I'm going to make sure that you have all the links so that you can see how to find her. But the creative is Kreativ. So there's a little twist already. So hello, Eleanor.
Hello, Jules. Thank you so much for allowing me on your wonderful podcast. I listened to the first one and I loved it. You're absolute natural on podcast, so that's brilliant. And thank you so much for, I'm the first person. I'm really, excited.
I know, it's great, isn't it? And thank you. I mean, it's always really nerve-wracking when you start something like a podcast. You have no idea who's going to listen and how people are even going to feel about it. So I was delighted about how wonderful the feedback was from that first one. So let's start to talk about LinkedIn, because you and I met on LinkedIn, which is really interesting. I'm all about, when I meet people, that connection, that human connection. And you just know with some people, you like what they're doing, it feels good. And that's how I felt about you, which is why I think we connected. And I loved what you were doing on LinkedIn. I've learned a huge amount from you. So I thought for this episode, anyone who is wanting to use LinkedIn or maybe is even struggling on LinkedIn, I think this is going to really help. We're going to look at some real basics about setting up your profile, connecting, and also content. So that's kind of the name of the game for this, isn't it, Eleanor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I went back to LinkedIn properly, if you like, in August last year, and before that, I'd just occasionally have a look in or drop a link. I didn't really know how to use it. It was just like an online resume, isn't it? So I didn't really understand what it was even there for, to be quite honest. And everybody was raving about it last year. So I thought, I'll go on and try. And I noticed a complete change in my news feed. People were storytelling.
Yeah.
And I thought, hang on, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's actually the perfect platform for me because that's what I do. I'm a copywriter and I really am into the storytelling side of things. That's my kind of content. So I just started I'll try this, have a go. And it was really successful and I started attracting clients. So yeah, and it started from there. And then I started listening to some of the LinkedIn gurus, having a look at their tips and what they were doing. And anybody who was successful or who I really resonated with, I'd follow and watch them and see what they were doing. And that's how I met you, Jules, because you were doing something different. And yeah. I liked it was completely different, in fact. So I love the whole, live it, love it, sell it philosophy.
Yeah.
And it was just different. I thought, okay, let's connect.
That's great. And the thing is, I'm also going to do a podcast in one of the episodes that tells everyone about live it, love it, sell it, so that they can really understand where that methodology comes from. But the storytelling thing is so interesting, I think, because it's a huge part of selling for me. It's a huge part. That's kind of where we connect. That's where we tell our stories. That's how people know whether we're an expert. They understand exactly what we've got to offer. And we do it in storytelling. And I think people don't use their stories enough. I think it's very interesting, just generally, LinkedIn aside, people don't tell their stories enough and link into their business. So I'll explore that in another podcast, I think, at some point, just as a subject in its own right. So look, let's talk about LinkedIn. So I'm just coming to LinkedIn. I potentially might have one of those profiles I set up a while ago, but I have never done anything with it. Let's kind of start from the beginning in terms of, I mean, we've only got a short time. We can't obviously tell everybody everything, but I think the important things, I want to talk to you about things like the headline, Eleanor, as a starting point. You know, that first bit underneath your name on LinkedIn that sort of tells everyone what you do. What should be in there? Tell us.
Well, that's really important, because it's the first thing people look at. So if you're commenting, you know, you always glance up and just look at the headline. Who's that? You know what I mean? So if it says something like CEO, you're like, yeah, but it doesn't really tell me much about it, does it? You know, or founder of my own company. Yes, okay. What I want to know is what you do and how it benefits me. So there are various ways you can write a headline. You can have, for example, and it's a good idea to have a keyword in it about what you do. So, for example, mine at the moment, because I change it all the time, is copywriter. So straight away it's got my keyword in, by profession, storyteller at heart. And then I say that I'm the creator of the persuasive copy revelation method. So straight away, you know, I'm a writer. You know a little bit about me. And I think that's another way of doing it is by using something called the XYZ formula. So you say, I help, for example, small businesses increase sales with my storytelling skills. You could do something like that. So that's a really quick one. But whatever it is, it has to be compelling and it has to say what you do. Using a generic job title just doesn't really mean anything.
No.
You can also put, you know, that you're a host of your own podcast or you've written a book, an achievement. So what you do, who you help, and a little achievement, if you can get it in there, because it's only 120 characters, I think, long. So you have to be really succinct. But there's some amazing headlines around LinkedIn at the moment. So have a look at other people's and think, you know, have a play around with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about testing, isn't it? We said this before, just trying things. And once you've put something in, don't be frightened to perhaps change it to something else.
I change mine quite regularly because that's what I'm like. I like to tinker, but also it's fun. I see other people say, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've got mine. It says motivated, courageous speaker and dragon slayer. And
it's a dragon slayer. Everyone's like, what's that?
And that's usually the bit that people see first. And I've had these connections come in and say, I just had to connect with the dragon slayer. What does that mean, kind of thing? So, you know, sometimes that mystery is enough for somebody to want to connect. But I totally understand that it's also about, more importantly, it's about telling people your why and what it is that you can do for them. It's what's in it for them, isn't it?
So it's what you do and who you help is a really good key one, because then people know straight away, oh, I help small businesses, and this is what I do, or this, that and the other. But as I say, play around with it. I've seen some really odd ones, and some people's I think that's a bit too I don't understand what you do.
Don't make it too obscure.
Don't make it too clever.
And what about things like emojis? I see a lot of these headlines have got loads of emojis in, and sometimes I think, oh, you know, and I don't know how I feel about that, Eleanor.
I think if it suits your brand, go for it. If you put emojis actually next to your name, I did hear the other day that LinkedIn don't like it. I don't know whether that's true or not. But next to your name, you can also put your title. So I could put Eleanor called copywriter, but I don't, because I just like it to keep my name clear and keep what I do in my headline. But you can do that. As for emojis, some people don't like them. It puts some people off, but you know, at the moment I've got a little love heart emoji in my headline because it says storyteller at heart, so I've got a little heart one. I've had a little pen before.
I like hearts.
You know, some people that might put them off, they might think, you know.
I think where I've seen it, Eleanor, is these kind of there's been sort of sales coaches, sales trainers, because obviously I follow some of those as well, because I like to see, you know, whether I can learn from them, quite frankly. And they put these big red telephones and things around their name and stuff. And then for me, I just think, I just not sure I really like that. But again, it's a personal preference, isn't it? So
it's a personal preference, and you can change it. I think most people do it so it makes your headline stand out in the feed while you're scrolling along. But one thing you can do with that is with your profile picture. I don't know if you've seen my new profile picture, but I've put a little circle with my brand colours around it, which I made on Canva. So that makes it stand out.
Yeah.
But, you know, I might change that. So whatever it takes to make it stand out, do it if you know, if you want. So yeah.
That's good. I like that idea about the picture as well. Thanks for that little top tip in there.
You can also, in your headline, have a call to action if you want, you know, call me for sales or whatever. You can do that. I've seen that, you know, just test what works for you. There is no standard, really. There's no set of rules, but, you know, play around with it, see what works. But whatever it is, make sure it's compelling.
Yes, compelling and in line with your brand and you and what you want to say. Love that, love that. Okay, so then the next piece in that kind of setup of your profile is this bit called the summary. Now, remind me how many characters. This is 2,000 characters?
It is, yes. So it's not much. Again, here you have to be succinct. And most people in their summary, you know, before we came to the new LinkedIn, would have, you know, a list of their achievements and, you know, all this and that. And actually, it's the place to explain your why and draw your potential clients in, or, you know, your connections, to actually tell your story, if you like. So, you know, have a hook at the first few lines, because currently LinkedIn only shows the first couple of sentences. It's increased slightly with the new profile sections that they're bringing out at the moment, but still the first couple of sentences has to be the hook. So if you have there something like, oh, I've got 10 degrees in whatnot, it's boring, who cares? You know, it's not about you, it's about your client or your potential client, what they're reading, how you can help them. So I like to draw people in with a story. That's what I do. A story about you, but about how you help people, not about, you know, you could go into your why, but your why is about how you help people and how you benefit other, you know, what it should be.
Yes, sure, yeah.
So it's really nice to have a compelling story there. And I did mine, and mine is actually about Alexander the Great. So it is actually a story. So I think people get a bit mixed up about, you know, what storytelling is. They think storytelling is, you know, I sit there like Jack and Ori and tell a story. I mean, a lot of the times I do actually tell a story, but storytelling isn't about that. It's about the story of you and how you can help other people. So it's, you know, it's not, you know, it doesn't have to be an actual story in the sense of the word.
And it can be, like you say, as long as I think the story comes back somehow to the point you're making. So even if it's to do with your story and your journey, it has to then come back to a place that's what's in it for the client. And actually,
it's absolutely always got to be what's in it for your potential client.
I think you've helped me with my summary piece on my LinkedIn, and it's become a little bit of a story about my dad from memory, who was obviously very close to my heart. So it's lovely I can do that, because then I can share my dad with people. But actually, it's my dad that helped me to fall in love with sales. So it's very relevant to who I am and my journey and why I do what I do today, which is lovely.
And it will attract the people. It will attract your, you know, your vibe, attract your tribe, and it's very true. You know, the people who like that and resonate, they're going to be your best clients, because like, I get that. You know what I mean? So, and it's the same with mine. I get so many people say, "Wow, I like that." Right? You know, and I've actually had people, you know, purely on the back of my summary, contact me and say, right, okay, I want to know a bit more about what you do. So that's great. That's what it's there for at the end.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's like magic, isn't it? When that happens. I love that. Okay. So, summary, again, have a think about it. Think about the fact you've only got 2,000 characters, which, although it sounds a lot, isn't that much, but it's about, I think, giving people that a bit of you, but then also that connection of what it is you do for them. Yeah.
Give a sense of who you are, and also show, don't tell. You know, you can. That's especially true with copywriters like me. I always say to copywriters, show people what you can do. Don't tell them. There's no point in me saying I can write. I can show that I can write with my posts and with my summary. You know, so whatever you do, show it. If you're in sales, sell then. Tell me something. Show me how you sell. It's more likely I'm going to think, oh yeah, you can, because
Yeah.
you totally had me in with that conversation.
Yeah, I love that. That's really, really useful. And I think the people listening will really get something from this, because it will get them thinking about exactly what they really should be saying in their summary and what they should be saying in their profile. You know, a lot of people will just literally fill it in. Oh, it's my job title. This is what I've done. This is my job history. But actually, as you say, you are now talking to people as you. You are now selling yourself, but as who you are and what you can do for everybody else.
I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I do offer a service for it, but when I do that, I ask my clients a few questions, and these are things you can ask yourself. So sit down with pen and paper and really think about, like you said, your why. Think about your favourite clients, your best ever clients. What were they like, and what did they like about you? Ask your colleagues or friends, what is it about you? Ask them, because you can't be, it's difficult when you're talking about yourself to be objective. You need somebody else's opinion.
Yeah.
Ask friends and colleagues, what is it that I do? Or clients, look at client testimonials, what they said about you. What is it that you actually do so well? So sit down and have that little exercise with yourself and take time to really think about it. And if you have an anecdotal story that shows how you help people, then use it.
Yeah, love that. I love that. Okay, so let's move on to, we've got our summary set up, we've got our profile set up. It's looking fabulous, including our picture. That's a little bit different. What about when we want to connect with people? So there may be some people who don't have a lot of connections. There may be people who have just got a load of old connections because they've been on sort of some years ago. How do we start connecting to the people who we really want to connect to? What's kind of top tips on that, Eleanor?
It's kind of two-way, really. One, once you start commenting and posting on LinkedIn, the people who want to find, your tribe will find you eventually. But if you want to actually connect with somebody you've seen or you've searched for them, with the LinkedIn search function, always send, in my opinion, a connection request with a personal note, because it's just a nice way. It's polite for a start, and it shows that you show an interest. Look through their profile. Why do you want to connect with them in any way?
Yeah.
Look at their profile, find something they've done, or look on one of their posts, start commenting and engaging with them, and then say, hey, I really liked your post the other day. This is what I liked about it. Let's connect. Or I see from your profile your ex. That's great, because that's something I'm interested in. Show some interest into that other person, because it's nice. It's a lovely way to actually open a conversation.
I think so.
The connection request, I had one actually just this minute ago, and I just blocked the person straight away. I accepted it, and the first thing was hi, and I'm like, oh god, here we go. I know what this is going to be, so I'm not even having that conversation.
No, and I've had that before as well, Eleanor, where I've accepted it, but then I've just had it's immediate. It's almost like I would think it might be automated how quickly it comes through. But the other thing I wanted to say, sort of, when this is how I see it, I know that like online, we can kind of hide behind online, but what I really think is, if you can't say something to somebody to their face, or think about how you would deal with somebody face to face, that's how I want to behave online. So if I went through a pub or, an event, and I literally just gave somebody my business card and walked away without saying anything, I feel a bit like that's what it would be like to send a friend request, or not a friend request, a connection request, without some sort of message attached to it. So I think you're quite right. I think it's just polite. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's
polite, and it opens the conversation.
Yeah,
it absolutely opens the conversation. Having said that, some people do it, in my opinion, are a bit too overly. So they'll send you this really long request, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm like, I don't really care who you are. And then it'll be, how can I help you today? And I'm like, just be normal with start. You know what I mean? When you meet someone in the pub, the same way you do, go up to them and go, this is what I've done all my life, and I need to go to help you. You know what I mean?
But okay, here's the thing, right? Our golden nugget from this podcast is think about how you would do is if you met someone face to face or in a pub or whatever, would you behave in that way? Because I think that's exactly how you should behave online, is the way you would in a face to face, in my opinion.
Social media for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. But it does make me chuckle when you get these long messages saying, you know, how can I help you, and all of these things that I do, because it's just selling, and it's blatant selling without having built that relationship first, which is obviously what we're all about. Is that?
Whereas I'm more likely, if you just had a nice, pleasant conversation with me, and I've looked and thought, oh, you're a salesperson. Someone asked me, I'll go, Jules can help. I'm more likely to refer you that way, because I'm thinking, oh, who's that? Oh, I'm always trying to think of people. I'm often asked, do you know so-and-so, or, do you know anyone to help me with this? Or even with my own clients, if I can't help them, or prospects, I'll say, no, but I know someone who can. And that's 9 times out of 10 because I've had a nice conversation with them. Not that they've sold anything to me.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that's very, very human, and I love that very much. Okay, so connecting is very much about thinking about who we really want to connect to and why, because it's not just about randomly connecting to anyone, in my opinion, but just think about what is it you're going to get out of this connection. And it might be that they're not an ideal client. It might be that you might want to buy from them at some point. It doesn't always have to be this sales thing. I might connect with somebody because ultimately I'm looking for a PR person, so I now want to follow them and I want to see their content and see who they are, because that's kind of how I would do it, I think. So
I connect with most people just so I can learn something from them, to be honest. And being a writer, I tend to accept a lot of requests, even if they don't come without a note, because I want to explore everything I possibly can. I've got this thirst for knowledge. So it's different for me, but you should have a connection strategy, and you can change it.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And again, I guess you never know who they may know in order for you building your business. So, a network's a network, but I think it's just about making sure that you are you when you do anything on social media. That's my big thing. Don't try and be something different because you think that's what the world wants. This is that human conversation piece that I link to all the time. And in my sales methodology, I want to buy you. I don't want suddenly to find, when you've sold to me beautifully, you're a different person on the other side of that. So
that happens, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. And that's when people are when they're sort of trained to death, especially on the sales front of things, that can happen. Okay, so let's kind of talk about content, because I think that's the most exciting part of this. Obviously, we've got our profile set up, which we'll keep tweaking and making fabulous. We've now started to connect, and the connection stuff I think goes on anyway, doesn't it, throughout everything?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But the content side of things, let's say, how often should I post, Eleanor?
Whatever you do, make sure you're consistent. So if you post once a month, fine. But, your audience will come to expect something from you. So if you're posting daily, then keep on posting daily. Because if you're posting daily, then don't go on LinkedIn again for another 6 months, then come back. That's not good. So whatever you do, be consistent. I would say normally a couple of times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, if you're serious. I post a lot more, but that's because I'm doing my various challenges, and I'm a writer, and that's what I do. So, content for me is part and parcel of my marketing method, really.
Yes.
So it's important for me, but unless you're a professional writer, a couple of times a week is enough. And you don't have to always tell your story. You can do lots of things. You can give tips. Whatever you do, make sure you're writing for your audience and not for yourself. So think about what your audience wants. So what would your audience want your ideal audience or your clients want to know from you? What tips can you help them with their business or their day-to-day life? Give tips. That's a really good one. Or share anecdotal stories with a business lesson or a life lesson, if you like, at the end of it. It's about providing value. And I saw someone post today, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Jacob, said about value is subjective, and it is. So some people, you see posts on here and on LinkedIn, and you think, oh, everyone's saying that's a valuable content. If well, it's not actually that valuable to me, it's because you're not their audience. So,
Exactly.
don't worry, just get out there and do it, and you'll find it comes easier. I know it's really, really hard to get going, but once you do, and once you start seeing that you do get views and people are engaging, then you'll know you're doing the right thing. Once people start engaging with you and liking your posts, then you've got it.
Yeah, I agree completely. And the other thing that we want to talk about with content is the comments, because we've said this before between us. A lot of the beauty of you connecting with people is actually in you commenting on other people's posts.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a whole strategy on LinkedIn just by commenting. That can be your content. So once you start commenting on people's posts in a nice way,
Yes.
in a way that adds value, not just nice posts, but get into the conversation, you'll find that you're actually having a conversation with other people in the comments as well, and you're learning things. And actually you can turn the comments into posts, the comments you've made, as long as you refer back and say, I read Julie's post and this is what I got, at least credit the original poster. But, they can be great for mining ideas. I always say that, there's gold in them, their comments, because that is where the real gold of LinkedIn lies, in the comments.
Yeah, that's so true. And I had, I think 2 or 3 occasions now where I've made posts from conversations that we've had in other people's posts, because it's just really brought up a subject.
Yeah,
and it's been such a great conversation. So I've kind of shared that. And like you say, obviously credited the person's post, the original post, where it came from, because I think that's great to do that as well. Again, that's networking.
Yeah.
But, there's just the fact we had a great conversation on this post, and making your post about that. It is very much about conversation now, LinkedIn, for me. When I go on, I am looking to see what people are talking about and to try and, contribute to that conversation if I can. That's how I see it.
Also, it's like, social listening is really important for your business, because you can see what your potential audience, what they want. So, if they're saying in the comments, I don't quite understand this, not necessarily on your post, but on other people's, listening and seeing what's going on in social media, that's your, that's a large part of your research done for you.
Exactly. It's amazing, isn't it? The things that you can actually get out of it. And I think it's just about opening up your mind to how much you can do on LinkedIn, how much you can get from it, how much you can learn from it, and also how you can build a profile of your own self and your expertise.
Absolutely.
Because I'm now finding people tag me into things because they're talking about a subject maybe around sales. They then tag me in, well, what do you think? And I'm thinking, this is wonderful, because now they actually want my opinion, which is brilliant, because that means obviously they value it. Well, at least I'm guessing that's why they've tagged me.
No, whenever I see a thing on, I think, I wonder what Jules will think. I'm going to tag her in. I'll soon find out. I'll drag her into the conversation.
Yeah, load of rubbish. But it's great. And there was something else I was going to talk about. I think as well, I'm thinking it may be Ali, who's in our kind of network on LinkedIn, said something around, if in the comments you're having a conversation with someone and they're actually a second connection, then, and you really like the conversation, then reach out and connect to them and make them a first connection, because you've just got this whole conversation you've had with them in a comments thread.
Yeah.
You can now say, let's be friends, because that was great.
I'm terrible at that, because I have so many comments that I have to respond to. I actually think there's so many people I think, I thought you were my connection. You were my first connection. Then they send me a connection request. I'm like, oh.
But that's great, isn't it? That's such an organic way of connecting. And the other thing, of course, you've just mentioned is when you do put a post out and people are commenting on it, you should absolutely respond to those comments, because I have seen posts that have been put out, there's been 100 comments, and not once has the author, as it's called on LinkedIn, of that post come back in and interacted with any of those comments.
It's so rude. It's so rude.
Which is rude, because again, you need to view this as a conversation. And that's why I love LinkedIn, because it's about having that conversation, which is completely in line with everything I believe about sales. So make sure if you're posting and you're getting people interacting with you, which is fantastic, answer them.
Having said that, I have gone back. I have to keep on going back to my older posts, and I keep on seeing even more comments on them. And sometimes LinkedIn doesn't always notify me, and I'm horrified. Oh my God, that person probably feels
yes. That's happened to me too. That's happened to me too. And I probably go back and check the last 3 or 4 posts.
Yeah.
I don't go much further back than that, and I just try and mop up if there's any that have got through the net. So, well, that's brilliant. I think we have given a fantastic overview of LinkedIn in our little podcast there, Eleanor. You're amazing. I love our chats. I just want to mention that you have run a LinkedIn challenge. It's been really great, and I don't know if you're doing it again or if it's ongoing, but it's been super good.
I still run it. It's 6 emails, daily emails that tell you, the basics from, setting up your profile to comment strategy, a bit deeper than what we've gone into here. And then after that, you're invited to a 10-day LinkedIn challenge with daily prompts. And if you stay on my list, I am going to start doing them more regularly. So if once you've done the 10-day challenge, I'll invite you to another one and another one, and it progresses. So it's just to, give you a daily idea prompt, something to write about, because that's the hardest thing, knowing exactly what to put out there. And so these are just prompts to give you, an idea.
And they are brilliant, because I am very guilty of this, where if I really can't think of a content to write, I won't post. And I want to try and be posting at least 3 times a week, maybe more. That's kind of my personal strategy. And those emails have been at those moments where you just wanted that little bit of a prompt and an idea. You almost give us a little bit of it's a thought, it provokes thoughts, doesn't it, as to what you can actually post about. Really, really, really wonderful and helpful. So I would totally recommend anybody join that. And best way, I guess, is I'll put some links.
I've got a link where you can sign up.
And you can obviously follow Eleanor then that way and link in with us. Eleanor Goold, fabulous, wonderful copywriter, and Jules White, Dragon Slayer. Eleanor, I've loved our chats. I always do. Thank you so much for being my first ever podcast guest.
Thank you for allowing me to be your first.
That's amazing.
A bit of a risk for you.
Yeah, do you know, I think it went beautifully, and I think LinkedIn's a great subject. I hope that a lot of people benefit from the bits we've talked about today. And then obviously there will be an episode 3, because we are just going to carry on doing this now, which is going to be exciting. I haven't quite thought what it's going to be about yet, but it will be out there. And I really hope you keep joining us on the Human Conversation with Jules White. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you very, very soon. Ta-da for now.
You've just been listening to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White. If you enjoyed the show, please let her know on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Compassio Coaching.